Hi everyone, this is Muhammad Amir Khan again with a new video. In today's video, I'm going to discuss about constraints. I have one more video which I have uploaded on this topic constraints, which was part one. Now this video will be the part two for the topic constraints. So I have three parts splitted for this topic because this topic is a huge one. Okay, so this is the second part of three parts. So first part is already uploaded, you can go and visit that to get knowledge on like basic idea on constraints. Okay, now let's start on this second topic, second part two of constraints. So we already have discussed one of the types of constraints and the definition of constraints with some examples and explanation. So today I'm going to explain few more types of constraints which can be used while creating a table or procedure or view or etc. So this kind of things. Okay, so our function table functions as well are stored procedures, right? So yeah, so basically constraints are used to restrict the data with some set of rules. Okay, so we had discussed on not null constraint. So not null constraint does not allow you to enter the null values. So that is the thing. So now default constraint is used to set a default value for a data column. If the value for the column in the data row is not defined, the default value will be added to the data row column. In simple words, we can say that default constraints enable to insert a default value to a column when the user does not specify a value. What it mean is, when you create a table, for example here we have a table created. With the help of this example we can understand what is default constraint. So here I have created a table, like create table employee. So in this I have defined id, name, age, country and date of joining. In date of joining I have defined the timestamp as a data type. So if a user does not enter any date on date of joining field, what it does is it takes as a current timestamp, that is current time or current date and time. Okay, so why? Because we are using a constant default here. So what it does is, if there is no entry made for this field or for some record, then by default it will take current time, date and time with the help of current timestamp key. Okay, this is what it does. Default constraint take some default value, whatever we define as a default value. Okay, so that value it will be taken in that field whenever we don't have any uh, whenever user does not enter any value in that particular column. So this is a default constraint. Okay, so let's move to the next constraint, that is a unique constraint. When we want a column or columns not to accept any duplicate values, then we need to apply unique constraint. Okay, this is very clear. So let's go to an example and also try to understand this unique constraint with an example as well. See here on the bottom of the screen, I'm creating one table. Okay, with some data with some fields: id, name, email and department. Okay, so email have unique as my constraint. Okay, this is a field level constraint. As we know, there are two types of constraints, or two levels, how the constraints can be defined. One is at the field level, one is at the table level. So I'll come to this topic in the further slides. Yeah, so if I apply a unique constraint on any field, that field does not allow me to enter the duplicate values. An email id cannot be repeated for different ids or different names, but a null value can be accepted. Null value is accepted. Okay, this is the rule of unique constraint. Only unique values should be there, and also null is also fine, null is also accepted. Okay, this is some explanation which I have given in my notes, uh, that says the same. Okay, how to add unique constraint to existing columns. So this is okay. This I have given by creating a table. Okay, how to delete it, how to alter it. While creating a table, we can define the constraint as unique. Okay, after the data type, this is how we can define the unique constraint, unlike some other constraints as well. Okay, so you can see the next uh, create statement, that is create table student address. So we have some fields which does not have any constraints next to them or next to the data types. We have the constraints defined next to all the fields, like unique for name and unique for email. That has been defined once all the fields uh, declaration has been done. This is a table level declaration for any constraint. Okay, these are the two ways. Like field level we have already seen, next to the field and data type we define our constraint, that is the field level. Here in the table level we define all our fields first, and we define our constraints once we define all our fields. Okay, so these are the two types of constraints. Okay, composite unique constraints, again there can be more than one field uh, for one constraint. Like unique key, I have unique is a constraint. Okay, so I want name and email should be unique for all the records. So combination of name and unique should be unique, so that is also fine, which is called as composite constraint. Okay, next is check constraint. This is one of the interesting constraints which I feel. So check constraint can be applied on a single or multiple columns of a table. The check constraint can be defined while creating a new table or altering a table. Okay, so let's see the column level constraint. We have, as we know, there are two levels to define the constraint. One is table level and one is column level. Let's see the column level first. So see here I have created a table employee underscore ch. Here employee id int not null, check employee id between 100 and 1000. So what is happening here is I have defined the employee id field with the data type int, and also I have put not null constraint, which ensures that employee id is there in all the records. So the employee id could not be null. And one more constraint, that is check constraint. Okay, one more constraint is a check constraint. So in the check constraint what happens is so it checks if the employee id entered is between 100 and 1000. Okay, 100 and 1000, fine. Okay, so if the employee id is not falling between 100 and 1000, then it will throw an error. So this is what the check constraint is. So it checks the value entered for that field is satisfying that condition or not. Okay, fine. So this is a check constraint. So this is all examples of like check constraint. So this is what I have in today's video. So hope this is useful. So see this constraint is like might not be like heard more in SAP HANA, but I'll tell you like where this can be used. This can be used while creating a table or creating some stored procedures or table functions, right? So there, if you want to make sure your data is accurate or reliable by imposing these constraint, then you can do it, fine. So which makes sure that your fields are following the set of rules. Okay, so when you are imposing some unique constraints, then it follows the unique constraints uh, properties or rules in the same way that other constraints. So these constraints are used to make sure that your data is reliable. Okay, so that is what it is. So you have two ways to impose the constraint. One is the table level and one is the field level, so which we have already seen. So we have already seen the definitions and examples of few constraints as well. I have primary key constraint and foreign key constraints left, and I think one more constraint. That constraints I'll discuss in my third part of this constraints topic, and that will conclude this topic constraint. So hope this video is useful for you, and let's and we'll meet in the next video. Until then, bye bye, take care, have a nice day.